Today we're going to start the cardiovascular system. So we're building on blood. We're actually going to get into parts, the heart, the vessels, cardiovascular system. Zoology, we talked about open circulatory system, closed circulatory system. As human beings, we have a closed circuit or a closed circulatory system. And basically your main organs are your heart, and then your arteries, veins, capillaries are the tools that carry the blood throughout. Functional cardiovascular system is vital, very important for supplying oxygen all over your body, to your brain, to your feet, everywhere, nutrients, and then getting rid of the wastes. So here again we're talking about transportation. Your cardiovascular system is going to carry these things to different places. Deoxygenated blood is carried by the pulmonary. Pulmonary deals with lungs. So pulmonary circuit is going to carry this deoxygenated blood to the lungs, where it will then be supplied with oxygen. And then the systemic circuit is going to take that oxygenated blood to all of the cells throughout your entire body. So you can kind of see, like I said before, your veins are going to be blue. Blue signifies deoxygenated blood. Red is going to signify blood that has fresh oxygen in it. So notice coming from the lungs, oxygen, coming from the lungs, oxygen, coming from the left side of your heart, oxygen, and then pretty much everything on the right side of your heart is going to be deoxygenated blood. And we'll talk specifically about how that works. So today my main focus is the structure of the heart, and then Friday we will dissect the heart. Heart is hollow, it's kind of cone-shaped. It's very, very muscular. It's one of the strongest muscles in your body. Average adult, they say, is about the size of your fist. So 14 centimeters long and 9 centimeters wide. Typically, if you're a larger, taller person, your heart's going to be larger. The heart lies in the mediastinum, so in the center, underneath your sternum. It's protected very, very well. The apex extends to the 5th intercostal space, and the base lies underneath the 2nd rib. So we'll look at the shape of the heart and the coverings. So there you can kind of see there is, your heart sits right here in between your lungs, covered by the sternum, and there you can actually see, so size-wise, if we're giving 5 centimeters, your heart is going to be, I'd say, closer to 10, and there again it's going to depend on the size of the person. So, peri. We've talked about peri before, and we've talked about epi before. Pericardium, peri means outside. So it's the outside lining that encloses the heart. So it's going to be the very outside lining. 2 layers. There's the outside connective fibrous pericardium, and then there's the visceral pericardium, which is also called epicardium because it's the inner of the two that covers the heart. So when we dissect the heart, you can actually remove that little bit of lining that is on the heart. At the base of the heart, the visceral pericardium folds back to become what's called the parietal pericardium. Remember, visceral deals with organs, so it's going to enclose the organ, and then parietal is going to be outside of that. So basically, this kind of causes a sac where fluid fills, and that is called the pericardial cavity. So visceral pericardium lines the organ. It lines the heart. Then there's empty space filled with fluid that protects your heart. And then the parietal pericardium is outside of that fluid. You might hear of people having fluid around their heart. that means excess fluid. So you have fluid that surrounds your heart and protects your heart, but for some reasons you can get excess fluid, and then that is not a good thing because that's going to become heavy on the heart. So actually, this is probably my favorite picture of the whole thing because it's kind of hard to see. For right now, I just want to look at the linings. So myo means muscle. Myocardium is your heart muscle. That's the actual muscle of the heart. Attached to that is your visceral pericardium. Here's that cavity that's filled with fluid, and then you have your parietal pericardium on the outside of that. And then the fibrous pericardium lines the complete outside. So for what we're looking at today, this is the best diagram to look at because it shows exactly how those layers are. The wall of the heart, the wall itself contains 3 layers. The outermost is the epicardium. There again, connective tissue, epithelial tissues. It's going to house blood and lymph capillaries, coronary arteries. It's pretty much the same as the visceral pericardium. So you don't think about this, your heart is a muscle. Your heart needs blood, it needs oxygen, it needs nutrients to work. So when we talk about coronary arteries, these are the arteries that carry blood to the heart muscle itself. It's not sent somewhere else. It's going to actually feed the heart muscle so that it can work. Middle layer, myocardium means muscle. It consists of your cardiac muscle, and it's the thickest part of the heart wall. This is the main part of your heart wall. It's the muscle. Endocardium then is the inside lining. It is very, very smooth, prevents friction, blood can flow very easily. It's continuous with the endothelium of major blood vessels. So your blood vessels are going to enter or leave your heart, and this endothelium or endocardium tissue is pretty much the same as the lining of those vessels. And then they're also going to contain Purkinje fibers, which we'll talk about later. Those are very important as far as nervous conduction, making your heart beat and sending out the signals to your heart. And we will talk more about those later. So here again, another diagram. Now I'm looking at the wall, so I'm not looking at the outside part. Here's my heart muscle. Here is that endocardium. Like I said, it's very, very smooth lining on the inside. On the outside, you're going to have your epicardium, which is basically the same as your visceral pericardium. There's that space, parietal pericardium, and fibrous on the outside. Chambers and valves. This is probably something you've heard about before. You have 2 atrium that sit on the top of your heart, and you have 2 ventricles that sit on the bottom of your heart. The atria, plural, receive blood from blood that's returning to the heart. Thinner walls, very small part of the heart, and they do kind of look like little ear-like auricles that sit on top of the heart. The diagrams that you see, the pictures, the drawings that you see in your book are nice for showing how things flow, but they're a little bit unrealistic as to what the atrium actually look like. The thick muscled ventricles at the bottom are much larger, and they're going to take blood out of the heart and send it either to the lungs or to the rest of your body. The septum is the center part. It's going to divide the atrium and ventricle, the right and left chambers. Each has an AV valve, atrioventricular. It's going to separate the atrium from the ventricle on each side of your heart. It's very important so that blood doesn't flow backwards. You don't want that happening. If you have a small amount, you might have a heart murmur. If you have large amounts of backflow, that's not a good thing, and you'll probably need a valve replacement. So on the right side of the heart, the AV valve is the tricuspid. It has 3 little flaps that hold it together. The left AV valve is called bicuspid. It only has 2 flaps, and it's also called the mitral valve, either way. They have chordae tendineae, which are very strong, stringy-like structures that attach to those vessels and keep them from continuously staying open or closed. These chordae tendineae are attached to papillary muscles, which are little muscles that kind of extend up out of the heart wall, and they're going to contract during contraction of your ventricles to prevent, like I said, to prevent backflow so that the blood does not go backwards in your heart. Continuing, the superior and inferior vena cava are the 2 main vessels that bring blood to your heart. So superior means top. It's going to bring blood from your head and arms, drain into your heart. Inferior is going to bring from the bottom part, and it's going to bring it into the right atrium. The coronary sinus, coronary, whenever you see that, that deals with the actual heart. So the coronary sinus drains blood from the myocardium or the actual heart muscle. And that also goes into the right atrium. The right ventricle is thinner than your left ventricle. And the reason that is because the right ventricle has to pump blood to your lungs. Your lungs are not very far away, so it doesn't have to be quite as strong as your left ventricle. So your right ventricle is thinner, it pumps blood to your lungs. At the base of the pulmonary trunk, leading to the lungs, is the pulmonary valve. So pulmonary here again deals with lungs. We're going to look at a diagram and you'll start to picture how these work together. But at the bottom of the pulmonary trunk is the pulmonary valve, and that's going to lead to your lungs. So it's another valve that prevents backflow. Left atrium then, other side of your heart, also receives blood, but it's receiving blood only from your lungs. So there's 4 pulmonary veins that come from the lungs, so it has oxygen. It's going to your left side. Blood passes from the left atrium into the left ventricle through that mitral or bicuspid valve. The left ventricle then pumps blood to the entire body, and the main part that comes out, or the main artery that comes out, is the aorta, which is guarded by an aortic valve. So that's the valve that leads to the aorta, and that prevents backflow into your left ventricle. And I'm going to stop there before I discuss or look at the diagram.